if your English vocabulary is limited, it is extremely common to overuse basic and common words in the English language. If you want to sound more fluent and really improve your speaking when it comes to speaking English, you should have a wide array of English vocabulary words in your brain that you can use at any time. So today I'm going to give you many alternatives for 10 of the most commonly overused words in the English language. Big disclaimer, these alternatives will have slightly different meanings. However, they are still, for the most part, interchangeable with the common words that we're going to go through. Now, the first word you shouldn't overuse is good. It's perfectly fine to use the word good, but sometimes you should mix it up. An alternative you could use is excellent. Now, excellent means something of a very high quality or something that is exceptionally good. For example, she received excellent feedback on her work. Excellent is a notch higher than good. Here's good, here's excellent. Similar to excellent, you can also use the word great. The word great is also a notch above good. Great just simply means very good or of a very high quality. For example, he made a great effort to help us. And a third alternative you can use is fine. Now, fine is actually, I would say, a notch below good. Good is here, fine is here. Fine simply means something that is acceptable. It's okay. It's good enough. Not bad, but not that good. For example, the weather was fine for our picnic. In other words, the weather was good enough. The weather was not bad. It was fine for our picnic. The next word you should not overuse is bad. Now, good alternatives for bad could be the word terrible, which just means extremely bad or of a very poor quality. For example, he had a terrible experience at the restaurant. Another one would be the word awful. Similar to terrible, awful just means extremely bad. For example, the food tasted awful. I could not eat it. You can also use the word poor, not to be confused with someone's financial status, but poor can just refer to something that is of a low quality. For example, they received poor service at the hotel. Now, I will say the word poor is a little bit more formal than the word bad. It is not really used in casual situations. The next word you should not overuse is the word big. Another word you can use that's a little extreme would be huge. Huge is just referring to something that is extremely big in size. An example of something that is huge would be an elephant. So, for example, the elephant was huge. It filled the room. Another word that will sound a bit more natural would be the word large. For example, they have a large collection of books. Large is a word that would be used more commonly by native English speakers. You wouldn't say I have a big collection of books. Most people would say I would have a large collection of books. Another extreme word would be massive. Massive just means very large or very big. For example, the company announced a massive expansion. Next, don't always say the word small. Tiny is referring to something that is extremely small in size. For example, there was a tiny insect on the flower. Another word with a closer meaning to the word small would be little. For example, he made a little progress on the project. And an even more extreme word for tiny would be miniature, or in some cases, it's pronounced miniature. For example, she collects miniature toys. Now, for the next word, it's happy. Happy is just one of those words that sounds so basic. It's something that I think that should not be used too frequently, especially as an adult who's trying to speak English. Other words you could use could be joyful. For example, she felt joyful after receiving the news, or delighted. For example, he was delighted with his birthday present. And this word doesn't quite have the same meaning as the others, but you can still use it. And that would be the word content. Now, the word content is a notch below the word happy. It simply just means that you're satisfied or you're pleased, but on a very neutral scale. For example, she seemed content with her decision, meaning that she was okay with her decision. She wasn't super happy about it. She wasn't delighted and joyful about it, but she was content. It wasn't bad. Now, the word sad is also one of those super basic and kind of boring words to use. You can definitely do better. You can use more fun words than sad. One of them could be miserable. Miserable is a little bit extreme, but it is still an alternative to the word sad. For example, he looked miserable after the breakup. A word that is a little bit less extreme would be unhappy. For example, the children were unhappy with the news. Unhappy could be referring to a few different types of emotions, whereas sad is referring to one very specific emotion. So it's a little bit more ambiguous. However, one of the emotions under the umbrella of the word unhappy is the word sad. You could also use the word gloomy. Now, gloomy can be referring to a human, but generally speaking, it's usually referring to the weather or the mood outside. So, for example, the weather forecast was gloomy for the week. The weather forecast was sad, or it was cloudy, it was raining during the week. Another word that's overused would be the word fast. Another word you could use would be the word rapid. For example, there was a rapid increase in sales. The word rapid would be more commonly used than the word fast in the English language when you're talking about subjects that are usually referring to things and not people. You can also use the word quick. For example, she gave a quick response to the question. Now, in the context of sports, the word quick and the word fast can have slightly different meanings. For example, you could say Cristiano Ronaldo is fast when he is running in a straight line. But you could also say Lionel Messi is really quick when he's changing directions. It's a small nuance, but it is different in the world of sports. Another word could be speedy, which is really informal. For example, he finished the race in a speedy time. Again, take note that the word speedy is really informal, really casual, would never really be used in a formal setting. Another word to avoid overusing is the word slow. Try using the word sluggish. For example, the economy showed sluggish growth. Another word you could use is leisurely. Note that the word leisurely has a slightly different context than the word slow. Leisurely can mean a lot of different things. For example, they enjoyed a leisurely stroll in the park. Leisurely is typically referring to something that is really relaxed, not necessarily slow, but relaxed. A really advanced word you could use is languid. For example, he spoke in a languid manner. This is super formal, and you may not hear it that often in informal situations. However, it's still good to know what it means. You also don't always need to use the word hot. You could use the word warm, which is a notch below hot in temperature. For example, she enjoyed a warm bath after a long day. A word that is a notch above hot would be boiling. For example, the water in the pot was boiling. Another extreme term would be scorching. For example, the desert had scorching temperatures. Alternatives for the word cold would be words such as chilly. For example, they wore jackets in the chilly weather. You can also use the word cool, which is similar to the word warm, a notch below cold. For example, the breeze felt cool on her face. A word that is a little bit more extreme than cold would be freezing. For example, they bundled up to go outside in the freezing weather. Now you have a few alternatives for these 10 overly used words. It's okay to still use these basic words, but you should not be using them every single sentence that you write, type, text, or speak. If you know any other alternatives to these 10 words, leave a comment down below. And if you would like to test your level of English, I've created an English proficiency quiz for you. You can find it in the pinned comment down below. That's all for today, and I'll see you in the next video.